Hey everybody, it is Briggsville here, and I'm here with another top 5. This time round, I was asked in the top 5 Call of Duty video that I did a couple of weeks back to do the Battlefield version of this. So, here it is. This is my top 5 Battlefield games. There aren't hundreds of Battlefield games. There's probably about the same kind of number as the Call of Duty games, if I calculate correctly. That's just a rough guess. And there are a lot of kind of DLC or add-on packs for most of these individual games. So when I refer to a game, I refer to the game and its DLC or add-on packs combined. So the entire game, not just the original. Some people may not be happy with that, some people will be okay. As with the last video, my RTS, top 5 RTS video, the criteria is going to remain the same. Nostalgia, time spent, and the gameplay. That's how I've chosen my top 5. So, let's begin, shall we? At number 5, we have the recent Battlefield 3. Came out in 2011. It's probably one of the games that I've quite enjoyed, but not really got into as much as the other games on this list. In terms of graphics and such, obviously this is top notch. Nothing beats it because it's just pretty outstanding. But in terms of time spent, in terms of gameplay, in terms of nostalgia, it doesn't give me the same vibe as the other videos on this list. Obviously, there are games that didn't make this list. You'll be able to work them out obviously at the end of the video when you know all the other games. But for me, Battlefield 3, although the setting was interesting enough, I do like history when it comes to these sort of things. And I do like kind of modern warfare rather than kind of future warfare. I mean, this maybe Battlefield 3 is kind of just on the cusp of being modern. It may be on the next level of future, but for me, these sort of games have decided that they want to kind of move into a normal cinematic type execution when it comes to their gameplay, and I'm not so much a fan of that. So that is why Battlefield 3 is at number 5 and not number 1. At number 4 we have Battlefield Bad Company 2, that was 2010. Same sort of reason as Battlefield 3. I spent probably more time playing Bad Company 2 than I did Battlefield 3. Nostalgia wise, I remember playing with it a little bit with clan play, so obviously I remember certain people that I played with, and I always thought that the gameplay was... The game itself was a little bit smaller than Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 2, for instance. The fact that certain things weren't able to use it, it focused more on kind of infantry and mechanized warfare rather than total warfare, which is a reason why I kind of liked it over Battlefield 3 in that sense that I felt closer to the battle, as it were. Number 3 on the list is Battlefield 2. This came out in 2005. Now, the reason why, say for instance, Bad Company 1 isn't on this list is because that was console only, and I don't have a console to play on, so there's no way I can put something that I've never played on the list, of course. But Battlefield 2 is at number 3. I played a lot of time on Battlefield 2, especially with 1 or 2 different clans, which is probably why, nostalgia-wise, I remember it quite vividly because of the people that I played with and the time I spent really enjoying playing that game. Graphically wise, when it first came out, and gameplay wise when it first came out, it was top of the range. There was no way of getting around that. It was top of the table as far as I'm concerned. One of the best games at that time. it was only improved by the add-on packs that were released later on. Offered different settings and offered different different weapons and all that sort of stuff. I really enjoyed it, and that's why it's really at number 3 rather than number 4 and number 5. Next on the list, number 2. Now this may be a little bit of a shock. Most people will be put as number 1 in terms of nostalgia, but for me it's number 2. It's Battlefield 1942, plus the add-on packs that came out for it. Now the reason why this is at number 2 and not number 1 is because at number 1 it's one of my all-time favourite games ever, so it's very difficult to obviously surpass that. But Battlefield 1942 is one of the first games I remember playing on the PC in any kind of detail. And it's one of the games, though, that I never really played with as a clan. I used to play this kind of solo and just play whenever I felt like it, rather than trying to play it in any kind of organised manner. 1942 always felt like it was one of those things where you turn up to play for an hour and then that's it. You don't worry about it until the next day, whereas stuff like Call of Duty, for instance, or Civilization 5, for instance, that you play for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time, because you kind of get really kind of addicted to it, or you really get into it. Whereas Battlefield 1942, there was that kind of addictedness that you could get from it, but it was over a long period of time rather than just in sessions, which I think was why it stands out to me as a really enjoyable game, because I could go back to it whenever I wanted to, and I could still have the same amount of enjoyment as I did the first time I played it to the last time I played it, rather than have that kind of ebbing interest through the entire game. Battlefield 1942 has that nostalgia value. It also has the historical value for me in regards to World War II, and the fact that I spent a lot of time on it. One last thing I need to add for 1942 is that the people around the company that were available to kind of edit these sort of games and mod these games, because the tools were made available, really did a good job in creating one of my all-time favourite mods for any game whatsoever, which was Desert Combat. I really enjoyed that game. Probably one of the best mods ever created for any game, as far as I'm concerned. And that also added a new lease of life for it when it eventually popped up. But it couldn't outdo the number 1 game in this list. And you may have already guessed it, but if you haven't guessed it, I will obviously spring that surprise. Number 1 on my list is Battlefield Vietnam. Came out in 2004 and was universally panned and universally shot at like it was some kind of Viet Cong in the trees. It was just slammed with very unhappy people saying that the game was pretty much shit. Battlefield Vietnam for me was one of the best games ever created. It may not get onto my top 10 list, but it will certainly make the top 20, because in terms of the feeling I got when playing the game was almost second to none. I can't remember a game making me feel anything like Battlefield Vietnam. The maps were huge, everything about the game felt really nostalgic in terms of the history, in terms of the setting. I've always liked Vietnam as a setting. The people that I played with, a specific group of people that I played with, really made this game a lot more kind of, not tolerable, but kind of, it made the game better, even though some people would say that the game was worse than 1942. On top of the fact that there was people there that I played with, I enjoyed, it's actually one of the only games that I've actually played in some kind of professional manner. Back in the day, Battlefield Vietnam it was kind of on the cusp of being some kind of esport. If it wanted to be, I'm sure it could have been, if it would have actually, people would have got behind it. But for me, I did play in leagues and I did play in ladders and such, and we were never really successful in anything we did. But it's probably one of the only games that I can honestly say that we were involved in on an almost professional basis, which will never go away as a memory of the game. So that's why for me Battlefield Vietnam is number one. I know that probably isn't the best top 5 list for some of you people. Some of you are expecting probably Battlefield 3 to be number one or Battlefield 1942 to be number one. Certainly no one expected Battlefield Vietnam to be number one, but I'm not a normal person, and I kind of judge things based on the feeling I get when playing rather than the actual merit of the game. Because if it was based on the merit of the game, pretty much the order that it's in at the moment would be reversed, if you understand my meaning, in terms of graphics and an actual presentation, as it were. Anyway, that's been my top 5 Battlefield games. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any comments about maybe your top 5 or anything to do with this video, if you disagree with what I'm saying or if you agree with what I'm saying, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you very soon. See you later.